For thousands of years, there's been a secret language hiding in plain sight, carved right into the massive stone columns of ancient Egypt. And today, well, we're going to decode it. So what if you could walk through an ancient temple and instead of just seeing pillars, you could actually read the stories they're telling? What if you could look up and understand the symbols carved into the very stone holding the roof above your head? Well, you absolutely can. It turns out the ancient Egyptians basically left us an architectural dictionary, hidden right in their temple designs. The trick? You just need to know where to look. We're going to dive into how these massive structures speak their own language, a language of stone. It's a story told not with words, but with shape, form, and some seriously powerful symbolism. So what's our key to unlocking all this? Our own little Rosetta Stone, if you will? It's found at the very top of the column, in a part that architects call the capital. This is where the story is encoded. Okay, so where does this story start? Well, it begins where pretty much all life in ancient Egypt began, the Nile. The river's amazing, vibrant ecosystem was the main inspiration for the earliest and most common column designs. We're going to zoom in on 3 plants that were just essential to Egyptian life and art. You've got the stately palm tree, the super versatile papyrus, and the sacred lotus. Each one was immortalized in stone right at the top of these incredible columns. First up, we have the palm capital. And yeah, it's pretty much what it sounds like. The top of the column is designed to elegantly mimic the fronds of a palm tree. If you want to get technical, it's also called a palmiform or a plume capital, kind of like a big, beautiful feather plume. Okay, next, let's look at 2 plants you'd often find growing together right by the Nile. And this is where it gets interesting, because their very distinct forms became surprisingly intertwined in the world of architecture. We're talking about the papyrus and the lotus. And this is where we see a really fascinating overlap. On the left, you've got a capital inspired by an open papyrus flower. On the right, one inspired by a lotus. Now, even though they're totally different plants, check this out. Their open, bell-like shapes were so similar that architects gave them the exact same names, blossom capital or campiform open capital. It's a perfect example of how the form, the shape itself, ended up dictating the language. But hang on, the papyrus plant was especially significant, and because of that, the Egyptians gave it not just 1, but 2 distinct forms in their stone architecture. And this duality, well, it tells its own story. So here are the 2 forms. On the left, you see the papyrus bud. This represents the closed, unopened plant, so it's also called a closed capital. Make sense, right? Then on the right, you have the open papyrus bell, or the blossom capital. Put them together and you get this beautiful story told in stone. One side is all about potential and the other is about fulfillment. So you have to understand, these weren't just pretty decorations. Not at all. For the Egyptians, their temples were like mini universes. So by carving the plants of the Nile right into the temple, they were basically immortalizing the life-giving power of their world in eternal stone. It was like a prayer carved in granite. All right, let's switch gears. We're leaving the fertile riverbank now and heading out into the desert. And out here, the inspiration for architecture takes a dramatic turn, away from the natural world and toward the world of human ingenuity. This next capital is really unique because it's not trying to look like a plant or an animal. Nope. Instead, it's honoring a piece of essential human technology, a tool that was crucial for survival and ceremony out in the vast desert. It's called the tent pole capital, and it's this really clean, cylindrical design that's made to look exactly like the functional poles they use to hold up huge ceremonial tents. So you see, it's a tribute to human creation, not divine creation. And if you want to see the most famous examples, you've got to go to the Great Temple at Karnak. This is where they took the shape of a temporary desert tent and transformed it into a permanent, monumental part of their sacred architecture. Pretty incredible. Okay, so we've decoded the symbols from the river and the desert. Now let's pull it all together. You can think of this next part as your own personal field guide for reading Egyptian ruins. You officially have the basic vocabulary now to spot these patterns for yourself. So let's do a quick recap of the 5 distinct types you're going to want for your reference guide. And here it is, all laid out for you. You've got the palm, the 2 forms of papyrus, the bud and the bell, and the lotus. Those are all drawn from the Nile. And then you've got the one outlier, the tent pole, inspired by human ingenuity. See, It's a really simple but powerful vocabulary. So, what's the big takeaway here? I mean, why spend all that time and energy carving these specific shapes into stone? Let's zoom out and look at the big picture. In the end, you realize these aren't just architectural choices. They're powerful cultural statements. They tell us exactly what the ancient Egyptians valued most: the life-giving power of the Nile, the cleverness of human shelter, and the timeless beauty of design itself. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? If something as simple as the top of a column can tell such a rich story about an entire civilization, just imagine what other secrets are hiding all around us, in plain sight, just waiting to be decoded.